For my visual literacy project, I made a piktochart that shows the most common minimum internal cooking temperatures for different types of food. So in my sanitation certification class, my students have to memorize these temperatures for the certification exam. The book just lists them in like text format, so it's not a very easy to study from resource. And so I created this resource for students to use as they are studying for their certification exam, but it could also be printed out in like poster form and put on the wall in the restaurant and used as reference when they're cooking. So for my design, I chose the blue colors that are the colors that are used for ServSafe logo, the dark blue and the light blue. I chose a contrasting yellow so that the title of the piktochart would stand out well. I chose a big bold font for the in size of the font for the 4 main temperatures that the students have to know, and I contrasted them with the colored dots behind the font. And I chose different colors for the dots, and they gradually get deeper, more intense the hotter the temperature goes. I also liked the circle because it kind of represents the circular shape of the dial of the thermometer. I chose different graphics that represent the different types of foods. For some of the foods, I unfortunately couldn't find, cartoon type graphics, so I did just have to pull a photo to use, but I think it still kind of conveys the message that I wanted to, and is an easy to use reference that my students could use in their studying as well as their cooking. So I would use this with students to help them review all of the various internal cooking temperatures. So at 165 degrees, students have to know that any poultry products, any stuffing made with meat, seafood, or poultry, and anything that's stuffed, like a stuffed pasta shell, all has to be cooked to 165 degrees in order for it to be safe. Anything that's cooked in the microwave, no matter what kind of food it is, has to reach a temperature of 165 degrees. And if you are reheating any previously cooked foods, those also have to reach 165 degrees. 155 degrees is the temperature for ground beef, for ground seafood, and students always kind of have difficulty wrapping their mind around what ground seafood is because they don't see it in its ground seafood form usually. And so I explained to them it's usually seafood pieces that are chopped or flaked and a lot of times form back together into some sort of patty. So like a crab cake, or the thing that really comes to mind for the students would be something like a fish stick. There's 2 different temperatures for eggs at 155. Eggs that are cracked and cooked and then hot held on a buffet or steam table have to reach 155, which contrasts with eggs that are cracked and cooked and served right away to a customer. And so when we talk about these differences between 155 and 145, it's really important for students to understand that when you have a whole piece of something like a steak or a chop or a fillet of fish or meat, you can cook it to a lower temperature, but when you take something and you grind it up, there's a greater likelihood that bacteria could be all throughout that product. So a steak versus ground beef, for example. So the students need to kind of understand the difference in why some things can be cooked to a lower temperature even though they're the same type of food. They come from the same animal. Your lowest temperatures on the chart are things like plant-based products, your fruits and vegetables, your beans and legumes, and your pasta and rice. I hope this chart is going to be helpful for my students, and I can't wait to put up a copy in the restaurant to use for reference while we're cooking.